Hey everybody, Michael Snyder, Pacific Northwest Weather Watch. Today is October 6th, and right now we are looking at the infrared satellite imagery. Check out this ridge of high pressure that's going to be protecting us for a couple of days as the next storm system here coming across southern Alaska and the Gulf of Alaska will be sliding down and carving out a trough. Closed low will develop here off the coastal waters of the Pacific Northwest. We'll take a look at that in some detail. We'll take a look at what is coming after that because we may stay active. And we'll dive into all those details as we go through this morning. Now, just a reminder here, I do run California Weather Watch. I do get some comments at times asking about things that are happening down in California. So yeah, check this out. This is the other page I do daily briefings on as well. In fact, we just went up over 40,000 subscribers. So if I'm doing updates on Hurricane Priscilla that you might have seen there, and in fact, let's back up and take one more look. There it is down there off the west coast of Mexico. This is expected to turn north and perhaps impact some of California and some of the desert Southwest. So taking a look again one more time, California, and we did some fun live streams down there as well. So I do run that channel. Now, looking at things right now, you can see once this sun rises today, man, we're going to be in for a very glorious day. But we got some very chilly overnight lows, and I'll show you some of that here more in a moment. But watch out, especially east of the mountains, but even across the Puget Sound, some of western Oregon, it's pretty chilly here this morning. Now, looking at where we are right about now, so this is the European model, and again, you can see that system moving across southern Alaska, and that ridge is going to give us a couple very nice days here across the region, but it is not going to last. So get out there and enjoy that weather. And you can kind of see this trough that's going to be carved out, and this low gets cut off from the main flow, and it's going to kind of retrograde and bob and weave out here. A couple different solutions possible with that action. Then it gets picked back up by the westerlies there, but it could also bring some additional action here as this short wave here on some of the models, I'll show you here in a moment, it kind of moved down across some of the region, and this could kick a powerful pressure, creating some strong onshore flow, maybe some mountain snows. We'll be watching that system here as well. We don't get too caught up in those details just quite yet. And some of the short range models like the North American model are starting to pick up on this one. If I scroll through, you can see very similar motion with this upper level low getting cut off and kind of retrograding back out over the Pacific Northwest. You see it right there. Now, one possible solution here is that we get some instability. So watch what happens as we scroll on in through this week. There goes that upper level low spinning there, and that's going to bring some of that southerly unstable flow aloft back up and across the region. We do have some thunderstorm potential, could even get west of the Cascades and back up and across the area. We'll be watching for that, and then this will kick inland and bring additional rounds of precipitation with it. Now, taking a look at the European, let's go ahead and look at the timing on some of this. Again, very nice day today, a very nice day tomorrow as we go on through Tuesday. See precipitation starting across western portions of BC. And then here goes that upper level low developing as we go through the day on Wednesday out over our coastal waters. See some showers being kicked off. And then you can kind of see, again, which would possibly can be convective moving across some of the Oregon Cascades, East Slopes, Washington Cascades, all the way up into BC. And some of that could come off west of the mountains as well as that low pressure system kind of spins a couple rounds of precipitation as we go on in through next week, and then it kicks inland across the region, and then we'll see what is to come after that as we start to turn the flow back onshore, and quite dramatically so as we go through next weekend. Now, total precipitation in inches, we'll scroll through this pretty quick because it's going to be changing, but again, you can kind of see the rounds of precipitation coming. Some areas could get some heavier amounts, but you can kind of see the hit and miss nature. I mean, look at this. Some of the Oregon coast not getting much, but look at the Cascades of Washington, Oregon. So kind of an interesting system. And again, we'll see what happens with this upper level low and exactly where it is going to track here over the next couple of days. You're going to want to tune back on a daily basis to check that out. Now, looking at 925 millibars, this is just off the surface, about 2,500 feet. You can see the offshore winds ripping across the area as we go through the day today. And we keep those offshore winds blowing out of the east as we go through Tuesday morning. Then we start to flip that switch there as that system moves, and we kind of turn things onshore for a bit. But then as it retrogrades back out over the open ocean, you can kind of see you're getting some squirrely winds and maybe a little bit offshore as we go towards the end of next week. And again, depends on what that upper level low does. But then that next system riding down, on the backside of that ridge will kick some strong onshore flow as we go through next week. And you can see the winds really starting to pick up there. But still at that time range, there is going to be some pretty good model disagreement, which I'll show you here in a moment. And if we look at the artificial intelligence, Taking a look here, this is that upper level low. It does have a little bit of a surface feature there as well, and then it kind of kicks across the region. Then the system after that has some chillier air that continues to show up in the artificial intelligence model, and some of that gets out into western BC, and then aloft it gets across some of western Washington, so that could bring some interesting weather here as well. But not all models agree on just how that is going to unfold. Now, in the short term, again, if you're out across the backcountry here, or you're just out and about, you notice some of those gusty northerly, easterly winds, or especially across the Oregon Cascades as we're going through this morning. We scroll on in through tonight and on in through Tuesday. It looks like probably the peak here for places like the Washington Cascades. Again, out of the east, there's the Stampede Gap right there, Columbia River Gorge, and of course across the much of the Cascades of Oregon. You can see those easterly winds continue to rip as we go through Tuesday morning. Then we start to flip the switch there a little bit as that next system approaches, and you see some gusty westerlies return to the east slopes of the Cascades of Washington, for example. Now, also these overnight lows. So as we get into October, of course, you know, you don't need to be a meteorologist to know that we start to cool down at this time of year, but watch what happens. So there's Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Look at some of these overnight lows as we go towards next weekend. Definitely, you know, going on into fall season here, and we're going to feel it in the atmosphere. And then look at next Monday. I mean, you see across the higher terrain, eastern portions of Oregon and Washington as well. But also this morning, it doesn't show this morning, but we are pretty chilly across the region also. And you guys know that, just waking up and going outside, be prepared for that. But also on the flip side of that, look at some of this nice weather we are getting for today. Look at Seattle, 70 degrees, just absolutely glorious conditions. I don't know. I'm not going to tell you to call in sick to work or play hooky or anything like that. But if you've got something like that in mind, today is not the bad day for it, as well as tomorrow. Because if we go through Tuesday, look at some of these temperatures, very nice conditions out there. You know, down across the lower elevation, just going to get that northerly breeze here, but man, it is going to be just absolutely picture perfect conditions. And then we go through Wednesday, and you see as that upper level low starts to get established, we really start to cool things down. Another fairly warm day east of the mountains, and then we go towards the end of the week, and you can see that next trough here on the National Blend of Models really cooling things down here across much of the region as we go on in through next weekend, shown here Sunday, October 12th. So let's take a look at what the other models have to say, like the European Artificial Intelligence versus the GFS, the Global Forecast System, the USA model on the right. Last night's model run will put this into motion. There's our ridge. It breaks down, and finally we get this low pressure system. We're starting to get pretty good agreement on where this is going to set up. And really all the models do have the potential for some of that convection to be moving back up and across the region. So it bobs and weaves for a day or two out over our coastal waters, kicks inland, pretty good model agreement there. And then the artificial intelligence, man, has this upper level low really well placed here across the area. That could bring some mountain snow and some interesting weather. The GFS much further north and weaker with that. It develops it, but much later. As you can see, the differences here as we go on in through next weekend and on into the early portion of next week. So kind of similar look to things here, but definitely more developed on the artificial intelligence there. And then if we scroll off into the future, you see a couple more systems trying to ride over that ridge. And then look at the GFS starts to point the storm track, and good old-fashioned fall storms start to arrive. Something different here maybe on the European artificial intelligence, or at least different timings in some of those systems here. So definitely something fun to watch here over the next few days to see how that evolves. So now kind of looking at things at 10,000 feet there, again, there's the ridge of high pressure. If I put this into motion, you can see our cutoff low there, our closed low off our coastline, then eventually it gets picked back up. But look at this cold air, it tries to drop off there as well. A little bit of a brush from the polar lobe here through the first half of October. Again, we'll see what's to that, because artificial intelligence is a little bit different than what the GFS and the regular European model are showing. So we don't have great agreement with that next system. So if we take a look at precipitation, let's see what the timing is on this, when the next rounds would start. So Western BC much earlier. So this is tomorrow during the day. You can see it moving down across northern portions of Vancouver Island and interior portions of BC. Some of the higher terrain is getting rainfall and some snow for the higher terrain. I should mention that as we go on into the day Wednesday. And then as we go through Wednesday night and on into Thursday morning, you can see the first round of maybe some convection moving over. So that, again, that would be Thursday coming up here, October 9th. And that could bring a couple rounds of this action on, you know, the models, or all three models are showing it that I've been showing you here today. So we've got that to look forward to. And again, multiple rounds of precipitation possible. And then kind of that interesting look as that cold air sags across some of the interior of British Columbia. Pressure gradient there setting up, and you can see the surface feature right there across western Washington, that subtle troughing, bringing some much colder air into the region. You see the GFS is not nearly as developed with that next system here. And then we go off into the future, and who knows what's going to happen then. But look at the 6 to 10 day. The Climate Prediction Center is picking up on that below normal signal here through the first half of October. Look at that, just kind of bullseye on the west coast. And the 6 to 10 day has that above average signal for precipitation. 8 to 14 day, something similar, and something similar there as well. So, yeah, fun stuff. Now, what else? Yeah, and again, check out the California channel if you want updates on California. I still get comments, so I might not be doing a good enough job on just exactly the fact that I do run the California channel as well. So anyway, Hurricane Priscilla down there, likely headed towards the desert southwest. Yep, so I'll go work on that video now. Hopefully you guys are having a good day. Get out there and enjoy that weather before the pattern change comes, and I will talk to you guys again tomorrow.